Hey, friend, welcome back to another episode of the Soul Podcasting Podcast, where passion, purpose, and podcast strategy come together to help you amplify your voice without all the burnout. I'm Demetria, founder of the Soul Podcasting Collective, which is a podcast production agency where I help solopreneurs launch and grow their shows with confidence and clarity. And today's episode is going to be a quick, bite-sized one, a short and practical chat inspired by a listener question that I recently got about podcast setups for beginners. So I've been getting more requests lately from new podcasters who want to know where to start, what gear to buy, how to record good audio, and how to make it all work without overspending. So let's break it down. We're going to be sure to keep it simple, but sound great at the same time. So first things first is your setup does not have to be fancy. I'll tell you what I'm using right now. It's my good old trusty Blue Yeti microphone, and it's not the best by industry standards, and it's definitely not the most expensive, but it works just fine for me. And I paired it with a phone box, and that is another Amazon purchase. Also a pop filter clipped right onto the mic. That little combo helps absorb sound reflections and cuts down those harsh P and T sounds. It's budget friendly, it's simple, and it gets the job done beautifully. But if you're just starting out, here's my honest advice. You shouldn't fall into the gear trap. You should only focus on just getting clean sound and not worrying about all the fancy equipment out there. There's a lot of things you could get, but we want to focus on just being straightforward with making a quick decision and moving forward with your podcast. So a few affordable options that are tried and true that I do recommend for beginners is the Audio-Technica. There's an ATR 2100X. That's a good one. There's also a Samson QTU. I've mentioned a few others on the show before in the past, and you can check out all of these, but these are both USB and XLR compatible. So you have to figure out like what's best for you. I prefer USB just because it's easier for me on the go, but these options will grow with you if you ever upgrade your setup. So be sure to also get a pop filter and a mic stand so you have something to put your microphone on. These small investments make a huge difference. And if you can, record in a quiet, soft space. That could be a closet full of clothes or a room that's kind of off to itself. These are goldmine for great acoustics. Now, if you don't have an option to record in a quiet place, just every little thing you can do will help with keeping things quiet. So again, the closet situation, I'm currently not in a closet. I'm in my office. And so there's a bit more echo in here than if I were in my closet, but I make do with what I have and then I go back and edit. So try to find as quiet a place as possible. And just keeping in mind that, life is going to happen. And if you're recording from home or from an office where there is a bit of noise going on around you, you just have to do your best to minimize that as much as possible. And that's where the Soundbox can help a lot. I'll leave a link for the one that I'm using from Amazon. I'll leave that in the show notes so you can see some of the kind of things we do to make recording easier. So let's talk real quickly about recording software because this is where a lot of beginners get stuck. So if you're on a Mac, you could essentially use GarageBand, which is absolutely free. And it's surprisingly a solid software. So I will never ask you to use something high level or with all the bells and whistles just because I appreciate that company. Of course, I love Audition and all the things that Audition offers. The Adobe products are products that I stand by, and I've been working with Adobe products for a long time, but I didn't start out using Adobe. So I started off actually on a Windows computer. So for those of you who are on Windows, you could use Audacity, and that was my best friend for a long time with my edits. I used Audacity for probably over 10 years. And for remote interviews, you want to check out Riverside or Zencastr. And so probably Riverside would be the one that I would recommend. And there's also Descript for editing. And again, I have a little experience with Descript. I haven't used it a lot, but from my understanding, it's a really simple way to edit your shows. And again, the more options, the better, right? So we always want to have choices. And there's a few for you. Both Riverside and Zencastr, however, record locally. If you're doing for example, interviews. So that means your audio won't sound glitchy if your Wi-Fi hiccups. So that's one benefit to using like Riverside. So the bottom line is just pick one platform, whether that's Audition, like I'm using, or Audacity, which is where I started, GarageBand if you're on a Mac, Riverside, Zencaster, wherever you choose, you got to pick one, right? And get started. Don't waste a lot of weeks researching. You'll learn more from your first 10 episodes than from 10 hours of YouTube tutorials, I promise you. So my next tip for you is to create a mindset that helps you to focus on consistency. I say that to all my coaching clients. Make sure you're consistent before you worry about being complicated and complex, right? So don't get into all nitty gritty and all the nuts and bolts and try to figure everything out at once. Just be consistent with what you do know, with the knowledge you have. Be faithful with that. Your listeners don't really care if you're recording on a $2,000 studio or your guest bedroom. They care about your connection. So just record, listen, learn, tweak, and repeat. And that's how you build confidence. That's how you improve your sound and find your flow, because your message matters way more than your mic. So here's your action plan for getting started. Choose a reliable, beginner-friendly mic, a USB Dynamic or a Blue Yeti if that's what you got. Use a pop filter and create a soft space for recording. Believe me, your audio will thank you for it. Keep your software simple, don't overthink it, and focus on showing up and speaking clearly, not necessarily on being perfect. And remember that every podcaster you admire started with a good enough setup. What matters is that they actually got started. All right, my friend, that's it for today's short and sweet episode. If you're a new podcaster and you've got questions about setup, gear, or just getting started, I'd love to help you. Head over to soulpodcasting.com and leave me a voice note with your question, and I might feature it in a future quick tip episode like this one. And if you're ready to launch with clarity, grab my free Launch Confidently podcasting checklist when you join my newsletter at soulpodcasting.com. So keep showing up, my friends, keep sharing your voice, and as always, keep podcasting with soul. Happy podcasting.